We're very pleased to introduce Ambassador Nobushige Takamizawa. The ambassador is a Japanese expert on defense, cybersecurity, and crisis management issues. He joined the Ministry of Defense in 1978 of Japan, serving in various security policy roles, including as Director of the Defense Policy Division, Director of the Defense Operations Division, and Deputy Director of Defense Intelligence Headquarters. He then worked for the Cabinet Secretariat as Assistant Chief Cabinet Secretary and Deputy Secretary General of the National Security Secretariat, and Director General of the National Center for Incident Readiness and Strategy for Cybersecurity. From 2016 to 2020, he served as Ambassador of Japan to the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva. He's also served as the President of the National Institute for Defense Studies. Currently, he is visiting professor at the University of Tokyo, where he himself was once a student. We're delighted to have the ambassador today, who will discuss Japan's national security posture in the world. So please join me in welcoming the ambassador for his opening remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for kind of causing a kind of confusion to myself and to you. And let me first, I think, talk about the importance of the ROK Japan cooperation. And I just participated in a discussion to talk about the importance of Japan-Korea relations, and many experts on Korea participated in the discussion. And tonight, Japan time, we'll be discussing the third round of the importance of Japan-ROK relations. So I think that when I was I participated in the TCOG discussion, I really felt some level of confidence and the need to cooperate among the three countries. And I really actively participated in the discussion, but just took note of what the ROK has to say and the US has to say. But I think at that time, I really kind of believed that the importance of the development of the Japan-ROK and the US cooperation. So we have seen another round of the Japan-ROK cooperation as well as Japan-ROK-US cooperation and beyond. I think the change has really happening, and it is qualitatively different from the past to series of Japan-ROK cooperation. And the fundamental change, I think, is the major power relations. I think in 1976, Japan introduced the first National Defense Program Guidelines, so-called TAICO, 1976 Defense Program Guidelines. And but the basis of that kind of strategy is the change of the U.S.-China relations. So for the maybe 40, 50 years, the Japan, the U.S. and China had somewhat very close and kind of the major power relations, 2+2 versus 1. One is Soviet Union or Russia, but it has changed recently. And in addition, there is a very growing tendency among the kind of collusion or collaboration among the four countries. China, Russia, and North Korea, and Iran, if I may say. So this is the fundamental change. And on the top of that, the kind of the mutual dependent theory has been proving that it is not so easy. And so that's the notion that the national security strategy in 2022 is calling for, that this is a fundamentally different world. But I think this is an important change. So Japan and Korea have elevated its relations for many times, but it has not been sustainable. But this time, it is really we are really facing a new situation. So if we fail strengthening these relations, it will be a very disastrous impact on the international security as a whole, not limited to the Indo-Pacific region. So I think that's a notion. And that's why the President Yoon kind of have launched several initiatives kind of to increase the load of the ROK, international security role, as well as strengthening the domestic measures to be advantageous in a very competitive world, as well as focusing on the cooperation with US and Japan. So this is a kind of very important change. And in particular, I think the importance of the economic structure and change of economic structure, and also the strength of the global supply chain. I think one of the very fundamental changes, what is happening is that the a kind of rise of ROK in a sense. I know that there are very difficult issues domestically, population, demography, and so forth. But it is clear that the power of ROK has risen very dramatically. That is a very different and very new factor. So this is a reality that we are seeing in the economic field. So these are the changes that we have seen very fundamentally. And at the same time, it is also affecting the nuclear deterrence, and particularly social media, and also the people's awareness of the kind of credibility of the extended nuclear deterrence has changed. So that's why I think we have to be focusing on the strengthening so-called integrated deterrence. But integration covers a lot of areas. That could include political leadership, and also the public understanding and awareness of the role of the deterrence, as well as kind of limits of deterrence. And also, once deterrence has been broken, it is much more difficult than before. So we are kind of facing, not we, but rather Japan is newly facing the kind of the challenge of the deterrence failure. And probably ROK and Taiwan have been struggling with this question, but it is high time for Japan to realize that the deterrence might fail. So this is a very fundamentally different situation. And in addition, I think that the cyberspace has given us a very different opportunity to closely work with. It's a daunting challenge, and the struggle in cyberspace is happening every day, and every minute and every second. So this is really a change. In the past Japanese policy, I think, structure, we have focused on the kind of changes of the situation. So all our legal measures are linked to kind of derived by the situations, which can be categorized and defined in a different way. And so the basic assumption was that we are living in a very safe world, and it would take time if the situation becomes worse. So we have some preparation time to deal with this. So this is a very traditional notion, but it is very, very different now, and seamless is not a kind of appropriate word for describing the current nature of the international security situation. Seams have existed, certainly seams are there, but what we need to do is a kind of simultaneous, I think, dealing with the ever-changing situation. So maybe thinking of situations in a kind of consequential manner is not, I think, working for the coming future. And on top of that, I think the domestic political leadership is changing, and also separation within the countries have spread, and in everywhere, in the US, in Japan, and maybe in Korea, and in Europe. So political strength is much weaker than before. So these are the challenges and we are facing. And what I was asked to talk about the President Trump in 2016. I remember that there are several, I think, elements that we need to deal with. And the most important element is a kind of the politics become very difficult. And second was that the a kind of traditional order has been kind of turbulent and has been challenged. And third element is that the huge gap, digital gap or economic gap, and domestic political gap and so forth. And number 4 is kind of informatization and also the spread of misinformation and disinformation. And 5 is that the political leaders tend to focus on domestic policies, not international affairs. So this was almost 8 or 9 years ago phenomena, but it has been strengthened further. And so I think that after talking about this point, that seeing the 8-year changes in this area, it has been accelerated and much more kind of deepened, in my opinion. And so we have to deal with social network service filled with the disinformation and malinformation. And second is that we are working on the various fronts at the same time. I think when Japan issued the national security strategy in 2013, and I believe that the focus was not on kind of a single issue, but mainly we concerned about rise of China. But now there are many fronts: Europe, Middle East, and Indo-Pacific. So this is a real change. And third element is very important. It is a kind of spread of criticism against the double standard. I think the U.S. was quite, I think, quite good at managing the criticism about the double standard, but it has been challenged by the social media as well as the kind of raised awareness of the public in everywhere that the U.S. is not really leading the international community on an equal footing. So this was true for many years, but it has been widely recognized by the political leadership as well as the social media. So this is a great change. And number 4 is a kind of suspicion in everywhere. Globalization and also economic sanctions and increasing divide and the COVID-19 issues. These all, I think, phenomena have revealed the kind of the reality of this double standard and also a negative impact of the globalization. So this is also affecting the kind of leadership. And finally, I think that the kind of nationalism or self-esteem or kind of is now has been intensified. And also, I think a bubble of the social media has intensified this phenomena. And also, generative AI is a kind of exacerbating this trend in a sense. So this is the situation we are in. So as a result, I think that the strengthening the ROK Japan relations have risen greatly because of the economic issue, because of the how to deal with social media, and also how to deal with the U.S. leadership and so forth. So I think that one thing that I like to propose is that first that Japan ROK relations should be kind of examining the significance of Japan Australia cooperation. And the second is that Japan needs to examine the level of the ROK US cooperation as well as ROK cooperation with the Global South. I think two countries can learn a lot from with each other. And I remember that, and I was told by the Professor Sakata the other day that in 1999 that there wasn't a concept that the establishing Korea-Japan defense cooperation guidelines and institutionalizing the Japan-US defense cooperation. And I also remember that in 2009 that Ministry of Defense and ROK Defense Ministry, I think, issued an intent of the cooperation, including various agendas, the strategic consultation and the contingency planning, and so forth. I think that this, contingency planning it was not included, but many, I think, strategic talks should be strengthened. So this is a kind of status we have, but the situation has changed greatly. And so, so these kind of ideas should be examined further in a different context and much tense situations, much collaboration will be needed. So in that sense, U.S., Japan, Australia relations, semi-alliance cooperations can be applied to Japan ROK relations, including the introduction of reciprocal access agreement, and also the establishment of 2+ type of strategic talks, and also how to share their assessment of the contingencies which will be affecting each country's security. And also, Japan has been closely working with US and Australia, and so-called the protection of the assets have been applied, and we have accumulated experience on this front. So maybe we can use Japan-Australia cooperation as a template to promote the strengthened relations between ROK Japan, and also ROK can come up with a kind of good template which has been applied to ROK and some countries, including US and so forth. So this is a kind of thinking I have. So when it comes to the Japan-US defense guidelines, I think 1997 and 2015 guidelines are pretty limited on a bilateral basis. So I think given the changes of the situation surrounding East Asia and Northeast Asia, I think we need to have some common guidelines for security cooperation, not limited to defense cooperation. So I think it can be done by think tanks or other groups before the government actually work on that issue. And in my opinion, that we need to focus on first that the kind of focusing on normal situation, not just thinking of contingencies. I think the current nature of the security issues have been much more kind of focusing on normal situations. Peacetime cooperation is much more important. So we have to think of the cooperation guidelines focusing on normal situations. And second is related to the more interagency or more people involved collaboration. And the past guidelines have focused on a bilateral basis and also focusing on defense side. But given the change of the security situations, we have to be including more elements or more I think, stakeholders in this context. And third will be internationalization. And I think bilateral cooperation or trilateral cooperation will be very important, but we have to have very well-established crisis mechanism that can be heard or that can be participated by international community as a whole. So maybe the third element is a much more international element. So it is not so, I think, will be supported to kind of establish Japan ROK, US defense guidelines, but it will be much more accepted and needed that kind of international cooperation guidelines to ensure the peace and stability in Northeast Asia or East Asia as a whole. And number 4 is, I think we have to put an emphasis on planning and exercise. And resources are limited. And so we have already coordinated the planning timing and the joint exercises and multilateral exercises. But for the future, we need to have a kind of very well-established 5-year or 1-year, I think, integrated exercise planning so that the stability can be maintained. And once something happens, the ongoing exercise will help to deal with the situation calmly or rapidly. And finally, number 5, I think information sharing or intelligence sharing is much more important on a simultaneous basis and not limited to the military intelligence, rather economic information intelligence and or other medical and or environmental and maritime and so forth. So I think that we have to focus on the substance, how we can ensure a seamless, substantive information sharing on this regard. And so finally, I'd like to touch upon what Japan is doing and what Japan will be required to strengthen this kind of a direction. And at first, I think that the political courage will be needed. And President Yoon, I think, has exercised this kind of courage for after he took office, and it has been, it seems to me it is sustainable, and he's determined to make it happen, and many things have happened so far. So I think on the Japanese side that it is urgent for political leaders to kind of launch a sustainable initiative to strengthen this element, and it will go beyond the current national security strategy. But it is much more integrated in economy, technology, and military affairs further. So political leadership will be needed. And second is that we need to kind of design the legal system or other administrative system based on the notion that the world has changed. And I think Yoon government already, I think, launched the initiative and has been, I think, successfully changing the system so far. So that could include the kind of the global supply chain issues or technological advantage ensuring basis and so forth. So currently, I think Japanese government has learned a lot from the ROK initiative, and we are kind of keeping up with the Korean initiative in a sense. So I think designing a new system will be very important. And third will be a kind of the experts. I think that Japan has long applied the rotational, I think, personal management system, and every 2 years and so forth. So from now on, Japan has to kind of strengthen the experts on, for example, cyber or procurement, and so forth, project management and so forth. So these are the, I think, areas that Japan needs to focus on. And number 4 will be how to introduce a kind of enforcing measures. I mean that the Japanese system is based on primarily a voluntary, I think, system, not kind of forcing or imposing a kind of regulations, mandatory regulations to do so. But this is kind of not good enough to deal with the very rapidly changing international system and the situation. So maybe Japanese government should be thinking of some mechanism to do to do it in a manner that can include the kind of mandatory measures and so forth. And finally, I think data governance is also a challenging issue. And in order to ensure the kind of international cooperation and trilateral cooperation, each government needs to have a very good data governance system within their ministry. And the interagency, I think, cooperation and interagency database are updated every second and can be shared in a manner that is needed. So I think I'll stop there, and maybe I'm not reflecting the government position, but rather I just this morning talked about my wishful thinking or wishful action agenda. So I'm really interested in your kind of input and comments and discussion. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about my thinking.
Thank you, Ambassador. That's great. Tom Kim. Tom, Go ahead.
Okay, Ambassador, thank you very much for doing this for us, and very comprehensive. And you just cover every aspect of international relations and security matters affecting Japan and South Korea and the United States and elsewhere. Now, you haven't mentioned anything about the North Korea specifically, other than security relations. Now, when it comes to North Korean issue to the Japanese attention, the first thing they take up with this issue of adoptees, and it's admirable for Japanese government to pursue the full accounting of what happened to their own citizens by the North Korean regime. But at the same time, because of that, there's no movement on that front, and Japan doesn't seem to be interested in moving on other fronts of diplomacy, like missiles and security issues that threatening not just South Korea, but Japan as well, and firing missiles every day and developing their nuclear arsenal. Now, how long Japan can really wait until North Korea comes around, which I doubt very much is going to come around, and to take up the issue of adoption. And as far as North Korea is concerned, they already have given an answer, and I don't think they're going to come up with anything new differently. Now, so what it is now, you talked about the trilateral cooperation between South Korea and Japan and the United States, which involves the security issues against the threat of North Korean nuclear issues and their provocative nature of hostility. Now, what we have is a situation where, although North Korea thought it was imminent that you can see provocation or war starting anytime, anywhere in the Korean Peninsula, involving directly South Korea and Japan as well. And but what it is, we have a deterrent depending on depend on efficacy of a deterrent in the sense that we have enough measures to cope with their provocation and respond to their starting war, or if should we detect such a move on the part of North Korea. But at the same time, we are depending on the North Korean credibility that North Koreans would believe they will be utterly destroyed or removed from the face of the earth once they start another war in that part of the world. Now, but security is a state of mind, depending upon how you see it. And South Korean opposition leader is saying that South Koreans somehow believe under the government's policy of a bold accommodation, but nevertheless very strong, the countermeasures to North Korean provocations. And South Korean now somehow believe, even if there is a war will happen tomorrow, South Koreans would not think it was a very strange after all, because they are expecting it that happen anyway. I don't think that's the situation South Korean people want to live under such uneasiness, although it's a security of mind, and we have a deterrent against exercises and strategic weapons, and also intention to use them should we have to, and all that, and having deterrent effect on the North Korean behavior. Now, I think there's something Japan and the United States and South Korea can also do diplomatically to manage North Korean behavior and maintain its security stability, maintain stability in that part of the world. What is your take on that?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Jonathan. And I believe that the for what is most important, I think, will be kind of making a joint assessment of the DPRK's intention, and also the assessment of their military posture or nuclear missile capabilities, and compare notes, and what does it mean, and what is really challenging is to know the intention of the DPRK. So it's the hardest part, and I remember that if we vote for their intention, there will be a very divided, I think, response. So, but what I would like to kind of promote is that the kind of updating of assessment to DPRK. And I think for the past several years, DPRK has developed nuclear capabilities as well as missile capabilities, and much more, and also doctrine development. But have we, I mean that the Japan, ROK, US have really compare notes and exchange assessments, or try to find out the differences as well as commonalities of our assessment. So I think that is lacking. And so if we really serious about the situation in North Korea, we need to conduct a kind of much more realistic kind of simulation exercise among three countries. And I think that inviting the liaison officers or will be discussed, but there is a strong reluctance on this issue. So maybe if it is difficult, I think we need to focus on the kind of comparing notes of the current assessment and so forth. And with regard to, I think, diplomatic front, I don't know what is happening under the surface, but it is my personal impression that Japan is kind of sending a positive message to the PRK by the Prime Minister's, I think, speech in the Diet sounds kind of something very nuanced one. And so I think these efforts should be made, and but I believe that that is underway. But thirdly, I think what is much more important is that how we can kind of coordinate our reaction to the PRK. Have we established some mechanism to jointly, I think, respond to the DPRK kind of verbal offensive, and are we, I think, fully coordinated, and what we understand? Do we understand what each side is actually, I think, responding to these matters? I think that's what I can say, and also. To what extent are we able to kind of cooperate in the international setting, multilateral fora, and so forth? And I think that when I was in Geneva and in New York, I really appreciated the ROK efforts to cooperate with France on kind of raising awareness of the kind of difficulty of the PRK issue to the international community. And in that sense, France and ROK cooperation seems to be standing out, in my opinion. So why not I kind of extending these initiative, not just highlighting on the nuclear development and missile development, but as any other means to kind of strengthen the diplomatic efforts on this matter. But finally, if I may say that. From the Japanese perspective, too much focus on kind of the North Korean threats, I think, tend to shift the kind of overall, I think, nature of the security dilemma in East Asia. So I think striking a good balance among the China, Russia, DPRK, and outside of threats, I think important. So we have to be kind of tolerant enough to know the differences of the priority. I think that's important. But what is really common to us all is that the kind of base access issue is really important to strengthen the tolerance as well as kind of dealing with the various issues. I mean that Russia, China, and North Korea. So, and if the deterrence fails, that the base issue will be much more important. And I was in the Defense Facilities Administration Agency in the past, and but it was resolved. And so, but the base issue will be really important. So, how to kind of make a seamless coordination to strengthen U.S. bases or UN bases in Japan for the contingencies. We haven't, I think, tested or exercised the actual situation, how we can mobilize the effective use of the bases in Japan, and also logistic cooperation and so forth. So maybe diplomatic areas and for structure levels and operational issues, not limited to the military. So I hope this will be partially answering to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. David Lee, are you out there?
Hi, yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Ambassador, for being here today and for your remarks. With the upcoming U.S. elections, I was hoping if we could get your insight on how you and perhaps Japanese political circles feel changing administrations or administrations in their second term might affect Japanese policy in the region historically, but also presently, especially considering the other fundamental changes that you've mentioned are occurring right now with Japan and Korea.
Yeah, thank you for your good question. And I think in Japan that there are three thinking. First is that that might give us an opportunity to think unthinkables. I think that's one possibility, both positive terms and difficult terms. And second, I think is that the how to kind of how to encourage U.S. engagement in international affairs, or kind of how to kind of make an joint integrated type of démarche to U.S. So this is I think second case. So maybe I used to call it a kind of the role for the interactive sincere powers. Interactive sincere powers will include Japan, Australia, ROK, and so forth. But this is a kind of concept that to engage major powers for the international fora, while these powers maintaining a kind of sincere and sustainable kind of engagement in international affairs, both in the like-minded countries and Southeast Asia, as well as the so-called global South and so forth. So this is so that's a second part. And third, maybe related to continuation of the policy, or kind of renewing the past policy and so forth. Maybe this is not easily done, but when the President Trump assumed the presidency, and we just tended to focus on the changes, but there seems to be a kind of significant consistency or continuation of the past policy. And when the Biden took office, and there is a kind of good continuation of the policy and so forth. I have the impression that Biden took advantage of the Trump's kind of taboo-breaking type of new initiatives, which couldn't have been done without Trump. But once conducted, it has some positive elements, and President Biden took advantage of that. So maybe the similar thing could happen, and so forth. But when it comes to the nuclear issue, it's really challenging. So I think that before the election, I mean the November election, ROK and Japan, two leaders and defense authorities need to get together and to talk about what are the challenges. And in that sense, I think that the both governments and both experts need to work on the U.S. national security strategy and other documents which are calling for the examining the role of conventional weapons and what elements will be needed to strengthen integrated deterrence, not just limited to the nuclear weapons. And also, we have to commonly assess the U.S. nuclear posture review and what has been discussed this time and what kind of policy options would be desirable from ROK side, from Japanese side. I think that it doesn't need to be a kind of we need to agree on many things, but what we need is that what is a disagreement, what is a kind of common understanding, and so forth. I think both countries compare notes and ask each other and what will be needed. And if we have something in common, I think this should be a kind of thought conveyed to the U.S. Side before the election and after the election, between the election and the January. And so I think these efforts will be really needed and so. But the conclusion is that there may be there are some elements, that is the importance of so-called subnational diplomacy and also parliamentary congressional cooperation or among that and Congress and so forth. So maybe role of political leaders will be important. And thirdly, I think that the global supply chain issue is really significant. And if this course will be shifted, that's really in a difficult situation. So I think ROK Japan, Taiwan, I think the cooperation on global supply chain, in particular semiconductors. I think in collaboration with the major platformers and so forth, we have to kind of need to consolidate the plans as soon as possible. I think this can be a good basis for the integration element for the new president. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Larry Nix. Larry Nix? Are you there? If not,
can you hear me?
Okay, Larry, go ahead. Go ahead, Larry. Unbutton your microphone. Go ahead. Good.
Is it on now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned the international aspect of Japanese South Korean relations in several elements of your talk tonight. I'd like to ask you about the issue of membership in the G7.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the G7 used to be, I believe, the G8 when Russia was a member, but Russia is no longer a member. I have believed for some time that South Korea, by all standards, should be eligible for membership in the G7, which is an organization representing the major democracies of the world. South Korea is one of the top 10 economies in the world today. In terms of their international role, including especially their international defense and security role, that has expanded in important ways in just the last few years. Note the $13 billion arms deal between South Korea and Poland in 2023. And note that within the last few months, it has been reported that, and this is a surprise, a big surprise, that South Korea is the leading supplier of artillery shells to Ukraine right now. With the U.S. the U.S. not supplying the goods because of the congressional deadlock, and the Europeans, frankly, not doing enough in this regard. Has there been any, in terms of South Korea's growing role, both economically and in terms of international security, in terms of the impact on Japan ROK relations, has there been any thought or discussion in Japan about nominating South Korea for membership in the G7 group? Now, I know that among international experts, there is some division in views about how important the G7 is. But it seems to me, with an expanded Asian membership in the G7, which South Korea would provide with Japan, this group could become, with initiatives by the Asian countries and the US and hopefully a couple of the European countries, an expanded organization for some serious discussions about mutual security coordination of policies in dealing with some of these tension and crisis situations. So has there been any talk in Japan about bringing up with the US and with the Europeans an advocacy for South Korea becoming a member of the G7?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Larry.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. I think this issue has been already raised by the ROK government, and it has been discussed, I think, in various contexts. I think that is my understanding. But I think that the including G20 and G7 and or SCO and other fora, I think that it is the kind of proliferation of unilateral or multilateral fora I have seen. So, but what is really, I think, important is that which role each kind of framework has, and I think that if we really serious about the kind of focusing on Asian initiative, I believe that the Japan, ROK, India, and Australia, maybe not a kind of new quad can jointly launch some initiative to kind of have a different perspective of making or improving international order further. So with collaboration of the US and Europe as well. Maybe some country from ASEAN can join. Indonesia will be a good candidate. So I think that one idea would be these 5 countries get together and to launch some mechanism.
to focus on a kind of forming a new initiative to review the situation and to have introduce some new mechanism and so forth. That is a kind of thinking I have. And if focusing on ROK participation to G7, maybe many people will say ROK is okay, but why just ROK? It would be a question. And also, G7 is a kind of NATO plus Japan or something. And so if we have been participating simultaneously, then I think very dense ROK Japan relations, or I mean that Japan, India, Australia, these countries need to be very closely coordinated on various issues. So I think that if the Japan ROK collaboration is becoming very solid and kind of seamless, then that will give a good basis for these two countries to launch some new mechanism, which could lead to kind of G10 or G12. I don't know, but there should be a very good forum that ROK Japan can get together and to closely cooperate with each other to launch some initiatives for the international community. ROK unilateral, Japan unilateral wouldn't be really appreciated by the international community. And I have seen some good chance for these two countries to jointly launch some initiatives in various international fora, in existing international fora, including UN and other, I think, areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Nobuo Tanaka, go ahead.
はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. 高見沢さんご無沙汰してます。
いや、こちらこそ
よろしくお
どうも。
願いします。
こちらこそどうも。びっくりしました。どうもすみません。ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. My question to you, Takamizawa-san, is that the collaboration of Japan, South Korea, and the United States in the nuclear issue. I have been saying this for many times in this ICAS, and also I was in Korea, Seoul, this week, and coming back again to Seoul, discussing about this nuclear collaboration issue. The what nuclear? I mean, three things. The first one is developing the advanced reactor system or fast reactor with pyro reprocessing. Korea has tried very hard to have a capability of reprocessing the spent fuel and get plutonium out. United States is not allowing South Korea to do so because of the non-proliferation. People are very much against, while Japan is given a very strong advantage and priority, let's say, privilege of this reprocessing thing. So I can agree more that it is quite natural that South Korea needs this kind of capability for the sake of reducing waste and using the plutonium for the fuel. So why not Japan, Korea, and US develop this system of using the technology and reducing waste while keeping the proliferation risk? And so developing this advanced reactor system, it should be a very interesting international model of advanced reactors for the future. So, and it could be applied to the solution of meltdown debris of Fukushima. So it's a beautiful collaboration of technology of three countries for Fukushima. That will help Japanese public opinion against nuclear power. So this is the first one. And the second one is developing the nuclear propulsion submarine together, just like AUKUS. Why not building the Northeast Asian AUKUS of developing nuclear propulsion submarine together? And this is South Korea definitely wants it. And Japan need it because for deploying Tomahawk in the submarine. I think current Japanese nuclear submarine, regular submarine is not enough. So definitely, this is the second issue of the nuclear. The third one, this is relating to North Korea. We could propose to help U.S. to denuclearize North Korea by for Japan buying their plutonium in the weapon and to burn it in our light water reactor, while South Korea can use their light water reactor to burn their highly enriched uranium by diluting it and collaborating with U.S. for denuclearization. Of course, Kim Jong-un will not accept, but this is a kind of diplomatic fight against North Korea in favor of the peaceful use of the nuclear power. And for the sake of to make these kind of thing arrangement, the Japan and Korea should make clear commitment for peaceful use and not having a weapon. Because I know that South Korea wants to have a nuclear weapon facing the challenge from the north. It's quite natural. But if South Korea has a weapon, Japan will have a weapon. Taiwan will have a weapon. Turkey will have a weapon. Iran, Saudi Arabia, everybody will have a weapon. And this is a total, failure of the non-proliferation regime. So Japan and Korea should join the treaty of nuclear weapon ban, a new one, which is very contentious. But I think that we can still join this treaty while maintaining the nuclear deterrence from extended deterrence of the U.S. So kind of this diplomatic fight for the new post-Cold War regime. And I'm also arguing that for India, give up your weapon. I talked to the Indian governments and friends to give up weapon and join Japan, Brazil, Germany for a G4 without weapon. Because to differentiate India's leadership in the global south, he should give up weapon, relative to China. So because global south do not have weapon, so India's leadership should decide to give up weapon and join. And then, these countries may be accepted as a permanent seat holder for the Security Council without, recognizing the non-weapon states in the United Nations system. Everybody wants to have a weapon. So this kind of reform is another very important diplomacy to vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis Russia, of these P5 countries for the safety use of Japan, use of nuclear power. So, so this is a kind of paradigm which Japan and South Korea should push together with the United States. And I think Camp David's agreement of 3 summits, presidents and prime minister, definitely we have to include the nuclear collaboration among 3 countries to the front. And that is my idea. What do you think about it, Takamizawa-san?
Thank you, Nobu. Long thesis. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanaka-san, for your very good questions, series of good questions. So I think time is limited, but one point is that with regard to TPNW, Treaty on Prohibiting Nuclear Weapons, I think that is not a kind of non-starter to sign and ratify, because it prohibits the kind of the collaboration with the U.S. So maybe it's really a high hurdle. But what is important, I think, is that the kind of credibility of the NPT. And I think in 2026, there will be a 11th review conference of the NPT. And I think nuclear disarmament is really an urgent issue. And also, we haven't been successful in persuading the international community that current deterrent capability is really working and good enough. And also we can manage risks we haven't been successful in that matter. And also the emergence of emerging the disruptive technologies and including AI, I think has been casting doubt on this element. So well, what is really important for me is to work hard on the kind of the maintaining or strengthening the credibility of the NPT, which is really challenging. I think that's the first point. And with regard to the nuclear reprocessing and so cooperation, I think it should be really transparent. And also, we shouldn't be giving a wrong message to China, which is really working hard on the kind of the increasing the plutonium for the kind of the weaponization. So this is an answer to the first point. And with regard to the submarine issue, I think I have been kind of promoting the concept of the importance of the underwater space management as well as the underwater supremacy by Japan, US, and allies and partners. So in that sense, I think Japan and ROK needs to cooperate further, and this should include Taiwan and other ASEAN countries as well as Australia. Maybe underwater space management needs to be made and established so that the deterrent credibility can be maintained. And nuclear powered submarines, it will take a lot of time, but I think was thinking about it. And with regard to kind of incentives or peace offensive to the PRK, I think it is a good idea. But I'd rather, I think, to see as much more integrated economic package, or I think to give some incentives to the kind of sustainable economic strategy for the PRK. I think that's an issue. And with regard to India, India is India, so it's really, I think, tough. But I like to rather focus on kind of maritime cooperation and technological cooperation with India. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for your very interesting ideas.
Thank you, Ambassador. Dominic from Poland. Dominic, I know you are there.
Yes, I'm there.
Jump in, please.
Actually, I just would like to thank you for the fruitful discussion, and I've learned a lot. So it's only my comment. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. UK, are you there?
Oh, hi.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm just kind of saying thank you for great talks, and I learned a lot today, and it kind of like made me think about what you said in past an hour. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Hije, go ahead.
Greetings, Ambassador. Thank you so much for sharing insights today. It is an honor to ask you a question. My name is Hije Jung, and I'm a student at Azusa Pacific University, majoring in international relations and honors humanities. I'd like to ask you about cybersecurity concerning North Korea. Obviously, North Korea has advanced hacking capabilities and has caused significant harm to other countries. So how can South Korea and Japan collaborate to address the cyber threats from North Korea? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think at first, I think pointed that with help of other international communities and countries that we need to make a very, very comprehensive assessment of the North Korea's, I think, cyber capability. I think, and also we need to kind of analyze the person in church who are involved in the cyber business or extortion business in a sense. So I think the accurate assessment of the current capability is very important. And secondly, And so we need to identify the source of their capability, why their capability is on the rise, and why so successful. I think I personally don't know why they are good at. But one, I think, assumption is that kind of dedication of the focused issue, and as well as the leadership, I think, endorsement, and also maybe the personality related to the kind of persistent personality of the Asian people, particularly Northeast Asian people. So, but anyway, we need to kind of analyze these things. And third, maybe kind of how we can strengthen the attribution capability, or how we can kind of strengthen our attribution tool so that we can identify their use of methods. I think, and then finally, I think that U.S. has making a pretty good forward hunting, and I think so. To what extent can we cooperate with the technologies to deal with this issue, including attribution and so forth. And finally, I think raising awareness efforts, both ROK and Japan, will be important. And that should include three elements. First is the threat of ROK, and second is that what individual can do to strengthen the protection, and third, that how to share information, and please kind of report as soon as possible and widely to any incident that happens. So this is a really basic point, but we haven't done well yet. So that's a kind of source of DPRK's power, to kind of separate and utilizing the most vulnerable window. So I think will that be not good enough? But thank you for your very good question.
Thank you. Sungjae Park, are you out there? Sungjae Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Sungjae. Go ahead, Sungjae. Go ahead, Sungjae.
Okay. Thank you very much. And well, I have I have two questions. And first one is right now North Korea coming to the international world. So what is the strategy for the abductee issue to making an international issue? It's abductee issue supposed to be not just the North Korea and the Japan. It maybe it's a time to making an international issue. What is the your opinion about making an international issue as an abductee issue? That's the first question. And second question is, Korea and Japan also have a good relationship with the military relationship with America, but actually we do not have only, relationship with Taiwan. But looks to me, Japan has very good, way of approaching with the Taiwan. So maybe you can share with Korea what way you did good.
Muted. You are muted. I'm afraid.
Sungjae, unmute your button.
Huh?
Unmute your button.
Yeah, we cannot hear you.
Sungjae, we cannot hear you. Okay, Sungjae, unmute your button, please. Okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Okay.
Oh,
So I understand two questions. Two questions
Can you
from
hear
you.
me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You asked two questions.
You cannot hear?
Yeah, I think the first question was the how to make abductee
okay.
issues a kind of
Well,
international,
It's
I think, issue.
Korea
Yeah.
and
Second, yeah.
yeah,
Second
Korea
is
and
kind.
Japan have
Yeah.
does not have foreign relations with Taiwan.
Taiwan. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think
Yeah.
I can answer to your
Yeah.
question. That the first of the abductee issue,
Okay.
Japanese government have been making every effort to make it a kind of international issue.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is the kind of using United Nations General Assembly and Human Council and Human Rights Council and in Geneva and also
Yeah.
and I think but
Abductee.
one of the most successful I think case was that the
Second one
to,
is
to tell the U.S. president this is a very good kind of influence over the
Japan improved the Japan and Taiwan relationship.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
we have,
And-
think, not be so good as other countries, but currently, I think the think tank cooperation among the Taiwan, U.S., Japan are making good progress. And this year, we are planning to invite the other countries in this kind of simulation exercise. And by conducting a think tank cooperation that even former government officials or kind of the military people can be, I think, remotely, I think, watching this development, and that will be a good basis for giving dialogue and a chance to compare notes and so forth. That can be done in even U.S. Japan and other countries and so forth. Maybe ROK can invite 3 think tanks to Korea, Seoul, and to talk about the collaboration and impact of the Taiwan issue on the Korean Peninsula as well as Japan. And now we are, I think, really talking about the role of ROK in the context of Taiwan situation because that China is increasing
area
China is strengthening the cooperation with Taiwan context as well as the North Korean context. So these issues are kind of seamlessly connected, and at least China really wants to make it look like very connected, and also they can exercise their power to divert the other countries' attention to different issues. So maybe it is much more important than before to cooperate, to strengthen cooperation between ROK and Japan, not in the context of DPRK, not just in the context of China or not in the context of Taiwan contingency. So we have a lot in common, and they are mutually connected, and some countries really want to make it happen in a difficult manner from our perspective. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Tong Kim, do you have follow-up?
Yeah.
Tong Kim?
Thank you, Sangju.
Go ahead. Okay.
Pretty soon, China, South Korea, and Japan will meet on the level of premiers or presidential level, which hadn't happened for past 4 years. The question is, whether you personally believe if Japan and ROK coordinate their approach to China with regard to Chinese exercising its influence on North Korea. I think China still has the most influential country on North Korean behavior. Or moderate to moderate North Korean provocative behavior and toward a more peaceful nature and more stability in the region. And of course, Japan and ROK are playing an important role in a larger picture of Indo-Pacific, and not to mention other issues, including Taiwan and so forth. But I think Japan and South Korea, if they coordinate in advance, what approaches or what to say to the Chinese, mindful of what impact it would have on the Indo-Pacific policy, because you have some impact on that too. Do you have any personal idea to take on that?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah, I think that the kind of operationalizing the existing fora, including ROK, Japan, China, is very important. And I think that the China is much more pragmatic than ROK and Japan. So we don't need to be so worried about kind of strengthening cooperation on dealing with China. But what is really important is that to strengthen the items of cooperation and ideas of cooperation among three countries on various fronts. I think that the good candidate is, of course, DPRK issue. But other than that, we have so many issues that we can work on, because the general commodity reliance on China, I think, cannot be changed, and the environmental issue is always affecting. We are neighbors of China, so I think we can see some good areas of cooperation. So deepen cooperation and deepen preparation for Chinese behavior, and deepen cooperation kind of diplomatic fronts on DPRK, as well as kind of taking cautious measures against DPRK. So we have to be frank and we have to be pragmatic on strengthening both sides further. Yeah, that is my I think point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Larry, next. Do you have a follow-up question? Larry?
Yes, can you hear
Go
me?
ahead.
You.
Go ahead.
Mr. Ambassador, on Taiwan, I have tried to follow Japanese policy towards Taiwan. And I am well aware that since the Chinese have escalated military pressure on Taiwan with these provocative military exercises, both the US and Japan have adopted certain military deterrence measures. In the southern Ryukyus, for example, in the northern Philippines, as a second example. But one of the things that has bothered me about US policy towards Taiwan is the lack of any thinking about strengthening what I would call diplomatic deterrence. And that means coming out with a modification of the US position on the one China policy, conditioning US continued adherence to the one China policy with China not engaging in unprovoked use of military force against Taiwan. In other words, telling the Chinese that if you do that, if you start unprovoked military force against Taiwan, the US will be willing to modify its one China policy, including the statement that we continually have made that we do not support Taiwan's independence. Now, I have never, in trying to follow Japanese policy, has the Japanese government clearly stated its position about the One China policy? And if so, can you tell us what that position is with regard to the One China policy?
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, I think that One China, with regard to One China policy, I think we respect the Chinese position. So this is not our own position. I think that's a kind of traditional, I think, saying about the U.S. China-Taiwan relations, and with regard to the unprovoked kind of attempt, I think the definition of unprovoked by China seems to be changing, and it will be changing. So I think that's a very difficult challenge. So to me, it seems that the verbal, I think, policy should remain the same. While I think the strengthening the kind of posture and cooperation among the like-minded, I think, countries and regions to kind of increase the capability, as well as to promote the dialogue. And it seems to me that for the past month that China is not really willing to talk to U.S. on military issues. So I heard. And with regard to the Japan, maybe ROK, I think China seems to be willing to kind of make China look forward-leaning to discuss the issue. But when it comes to the meeting, I have heard that not so much change. But one important element is that Wang Yi, Chinese foreign minister, I think, kind of asked Japan to return to Sogo Gokei Kankei, mutually beneficial strategic relations. And I think that's a kind of call from China that the past recent diplomatic initiatives of Japan and the U.S. will be working. So this is my opinion.
Very good. No, Nobu, do you have a follow-up question?
Well, my follow-up question is that Larry mentioned about the Korean participation to the G7 membership. This is an interesting idea. I haven't heard about it before, but certainly G7, as a Japan is the only Asian country. So to have an alliance with South Korea in terms of this kind of East Asian situation, I understand your comment about we need to think about India, Australia to get together. But if that happens, then it's endlessly expanding Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore. So why not starting with discussing to ask the G7 to get the South Korea to join is a very interesting Japanese diplomacy. Of course, we have difficulty inside Japan to do this, I know, but diplomatically speaking, to get South Korea into G7 is a very, very interesting idea, to have a very solidifying Japan-Korea relationship vis-a-vis other G7, because G7 has a European Union always as a part of the member. So it's not G7, it's G8, because EC Commission is always represented. So why not Japan-Korea coalition be a part of it is a very interesting diplomatic idea.
Sangju, just a quick comment on that.
Thank you, Larry. Go ahead.
This is an initiative, frankly, the U.S. should be considering and should have considered it some time ago. But given what South Korea has been doing in the last 2 years with regard to Eastern Europe, I think this is really an initiative that the US and Japan should coordinate between themselves and take this to the G7. I think the Europeans would be receptive to this. South Korea fits all of the criteria for membership.
Thank you, Larry. Ambassador, you have the last word.
Yeah, thank you very much for
Yes.
giving me an opportunity to think very differently and to take a lot of good questions. And thank you so much. And with regard to the G7 idea, what I meant was that the AUKUS minus US plus ROK members, I mean, but including Indonesia, these 5 countries can jointly, I think, launch some initiative. So I'm not just referring to the expansion of G7 to include these countries, but rather we need to be united in this region, I think, to take initiatives. Thank you so much. And I certainly respect ROK's, I think, growing power and also activities in various parts of the world. I envy your energy and the kind of passion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, time is up. Thank you very much, everyone. Ambassador, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Also,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Also, Nobu, I'll give you assignment, homework to do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you so much.
you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.